Welcome back to Naval Action. I thought today we might have a little look at the perks. So we're in build 9.93 at the moment. You need to know that because I'm sure these perks are going to get tweaked, both in the way the perks are constructed, but also in perhaps how they get applied. So let's just go through the basics. First of all, what are perks? So since about 9.9, you've been able to have an officer. You come to the home screen, you select officers. At the beginning you have to hire an officer, they cost pretty much nothing. As you do your missions, you will earn your regular XP. A small percentage or equivalent percentage is then attributed to your officer. As your officer goes through the ranks, they earn points, and with those points you can give your officer perks, and those perks affect the way your ship handles or how quickly things reload, so on and so forth. So it's a way of specializing how you play the game, and that's what we're going to look at now. An officer has 10 lives. My poor officer's lost 4 already. If your ship gets captured or sunk, you will lose a life. Once it's run out of lives, you'll have to level a new officer. At the moment you can only have 1 officer. That might be something that changes. You'll see, it's gone now. That used to say officers. It's custom. So at the moment you can only have the 1 officer, and that might be the way it goes. As you rank up, you can hit promote, and you'll see you've got 5 slots that you can allocate perks to. So at the moment you can have a maximum of 5 perks, and once you hit rank 10 you can get no more perk points. So effectively you can only spend 10 perk points. We'll get to that in a moment. When you are ready to add a new perk, I've already got 4 perks assigned to this officer. You press the plus button and the perk panel opens, and these are all the perks that are currently in the game. And like I say, this will change. This whole UI is going to get revamped. Each perk costs a number of points. So the maximum number of points you can ever spend is 10. So by example, if I got Storage Master, Pump Inventor and Double Charge, that would be 1 point, 2 points, 7 points, that would be 10 points. I could now get no more perks, even though I effectively have 2 perk slots open, because I've spent my 10 points. At the moment, the perks are simply divided into 2 classifications. Those that assist you in battle, and those that assist you with economy, so trading and crafting, although actually it's predominantly crafting, a little bit of fishing. So I thought I'd quickly go through the perks and give you a bit of a description of each and some ideas as where they're good and bad, and then show you a few different builds. Before we do that, if you want to respec, you can right click on your officer and hit reset. I'm not going to do that because when you reset it drops you down 3 ranks. So if I hit reset, it would have got rid of my existing perks. They'd all be cleared, but I would be back down to rank 7. A very important thing to realize is that your first 3 or 4 levels, as you're leveling up your officer, are really quick. You'll get those done quite quickly, and it exponentially increases the amount of experience you need. So by the time you're going for rank 10, you need to get a lot more experience than you needed when you were trying to get rank 1. Now, if you're the top rank, Rear Admiral, or Commodore for the British and whatever it is for your nation, the second top rank, to be honest, leveling an officer is really quick. If you go out and do some AI fleeting with some buddies, you can rip through the first 5 ranks in no time at all, in an afternoon. And then you do a couple of AI fleets a night for 2 or 3 days and you'll probably hit cap quite quickly. If you're a little nubby nub, and maybe you're just like first lieutenant or something, you're only earning 50 or 60 officer perk points per AI fleet, and as such it kind of takes a long time. So when you look at the perks, you might get all excited and see Storage Master and go, I want to have Storage Master. However, you're going to have to get to rank 7 to do that. What I would recommend is that initially you take your early cheap point perks and you level those up And in fact, you might even want to have a set of perks you're going to use as you're leveling up, and then know that once you get to Rear Admiral or Commodore, so where you can do the Rear Admiral fleets, you're going to be able to earn points really quickly. So then maybe you could do a respec and go with whatever your final build is. On occasion, you might want to respec to take advantage of a particular perk because of what you're doing. So there's a perk for crafting called Gifted, and this allows you to get a much higher chance of BP drop rates. So a lot of people might want to swap that in for a couple of weeks while they grab hold of the Busan Terre or whatever the latest sexy time BP is, and then swap it back out. I'd strongly recommend you do that once you're a higher level, because like I say, grinding those perks is a bit of a pain in the bum. So let's go through the perks and have a look at them. So we'll go through the battle perks first of all. So Coward, jokingly called the French perk. I would never say that myself. It's terrible, scurrilous accusations. It's actually a really, really handy perk. If you're in a battle and you get damaged, you can't leave the battle for 2 minutes. If you have the Coward perk, it costs 3 points. That's reduced to 1 minute. So that's really good for traders who don't want to be capped. And it's really good for people carrying flags in port battles. It's also good for screening fleets who want to be able to get in, hold somebody up and get back out quickly. So that's Coward. It's expensive at 3 points. Double Charge for me is a go-to standard perk for pretty much anyone who's involved in either AI fleeting or PvP. What Double Charge does is it basically increases the penetration dynamics of your shot. I'm not sure of the exact maths. The last time I knew what it was an extra 75% penetration with a reduction of about 25% in damage. However, this is really handy for 2 or 3 reasons. One, if you're right next to your enemy, you'll probably penetrate both sides of the ship. So you'll be doing a lot of damage that way. Secondly, if you're at an oblique angle to your enemy, say 30% or 45% angle to them, normally your shots would bounce off the hull because you've effectively increased their armor thickness by being at an angle. However, Double Charge will overpower that in most cases, which means you can get penetrating shots from great range or at a stupid angle. The other thing is that the Double Charge increases the range of your shot. So if you've got bow chasers on, it's a great way of keeping an enemy tagged. And lastly, the towers inside port battles at the moment are made of impenetranium. And the only way really to do damage to them is to use Double Charge. You don't get Double Charge permanently. You get it for a fixed number of cannonballs. So I can't remember the numbers, but it's sort of, you get it for about 6 or 8 broadsides. And you may want to use it sparingly. It seems to take about the same time to load as normal shot. And perhaps you want to use it at the start when you're coming in on an oblique angle to an enemy, or like I say, from range to tag them or be able to do damage outside of their hitting range. Now, double shot is effectively loading a second cannonball into your cannon. I don't know what the effect is it has on reload time, but certainly in my brain, it could be psychosomatic. It seems to be much longer. And effectively what this does is it gives you an extra 75% damage. It does reduce your penetration. So this is something you use when you're right close, snuggling up to your enemy. And it will absolutely devastate them. Effectively, you're doing 175% extra DPS at close range. But in my brain, and I'll do a better test on this later on, it seems to take significantly longer to load. So perhaps it's something that's a good thing to load up when you're sort of turning and out of the fray. And then when you get in, you can give them some double shot slappery. It does reduce the range of your shot as well. You can't use either of these in carronades. You can only use these in your longs. Frigate Master, Line Master, Light Ship Master and Line Ship Master are all the same perk. They just apply to the different classes of ships. So anything that can go in a shallow water battle is considered light ship. Anything that goes in a regional is considered line ship. and the rest, the deep waters, is frigates. Now what it basically does is it gives you a small but significant half a knot speed increase. The other thing it does that's really important is it gives you a 5% reload bonus, and that's really what you're buying. It's the 5% reload bonus and the 0.5% speed increase. Effectively, for many ship owners, it's the equivalent of having copper bottom on your ship and having the improved magazine access. So it's really nice. I'm a big fan of boosting your strengths. So, this is basically a 5% DPS increase. Now, Pirate Hunter basically means if you're fighting pirates, you reload 10% faster. It's really expensive at 6 points. I personally wouldn't bother with this unless you have a particular hatred for pirates beyond the normal hatred every healthy person should have. The other thing it does is it means that you do more damage. You reload more quickly in AI fleeting. So perhaps it's an option in AI fleeting. Pirate is kind of the opposite. And what it basically does is if you're flying a dirty pirate flag, you go 1 knot faster. Now, I understand, and I've not been able to prove this because I'm not a dirty pirate dog, that if you are a pirate, it does not stack with these. Now, they have patched and nerfed these ones a little bit, so maybe it does now, but I understand it doesn't. Prepared is one of my favourite perks. As a generic perk, it's a fantastic one. Basically, you start an engagement with all your cannons loaded. So if you're the person doing the tagging, or you're jumping into a port battle mid-fight, you come in with all guns loaded. And I really like that, especially if you're chasing down. It's only 1 point, so for me it's a really nice one. If you come into a battle and you change your loadout, so you decide that you don't want to start the battle with ball, you want to go for double shot or double charge or whatever, it means you don't start reloading from scratch, you start reloading from halfway through, so it's really nice for that. Thrifty is for cheap asses, so British players mostly, I'd imagine. What it does is it means that you don't use a bought repair kit. Now, this is handy if you want to just run around with one repair kit on. Personally, I don't think it's worth it. Repair kits are cheap as chips, so stop being a tight ass. Mortar officer is very specialised. It basically means that your mortar reloads are twice as fast, which is incredible, by the way, and their accuracy is 25% better now. And it also shoots an extra ball from the mortar. Now, combine this with the mortar handbooks and something like Pelot's sights and, let's say, optimised balance. And we've got a couple of boys who've taken mortar brigs into port battles and been able to kill with just 2 mortar brigs. They've killed 3 towers, which is fantastic. But it's such a specialised build, and because it's so expensive to refit your perks right now, not many people run around with this one on. But it is a fantastic perk with a 50% reload boost and a 25% dispersion. Dispersion's probably the more important of the two. You can start turning Santis over with this. It's fantastic. I do wonder when the new port battle mechanics come in where there's fortifications that need knocking over if this might become a better perk. But at the moment, with you only being able to have 1 officer, this is a real luxury. You're a real specialist if you're running around with this on. Determined Defender is probably the perk du jour. It is the new black, as it were. Basically, if you're wearing this, the enemy you can only be boarded if the enemy outcrews you by 20%. Now, this used to be 40%. It's been nerfed twice. It used to be 40%, and you used to get free defense. It's now 20%. But it's still a fantastic perk. Basically, if you have equal ship to your opponent, they will have to kill 1/5 of your crew before they can board you. Defensive Drill used to be actually part of Determined Defender. It basically means you get the defense skill for 5 preparation points. So that basically means maybe you don't want to be able to get capped easily. So you can run around with Defensive Drill on, hit disengage, and you can basically say defend, 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 defend 3 times or 4 times, 3 times if you've got the boarding axes, and be able to disengage quickly. Press Gang is a super duper sexy time perk. If you're into capping AI or even enemies in port battles or even the towers, basically when you get an enemy's morale down to 0, their crew surrenders to you. If it's cost you, say, 250 crew to board a Santee, the 400 crew that were on the Santee now immediately decide to join your crew. Obviously that will be to the maximum capacity of your crew. But this means you can do chain boarding actions, and it's possibly one of the most powerful perks in the game right now, and it only costs a point. It's a bargain. Area Control is a very specialised perk, but one that's really useful. Basically, nobody within 500 yards or meters of you can leave a battle, even if they have not been tagged for their 2 minutes or 1 minute. Now, what's important to realise is that's friends as well as foes. So you have to kind of, if you're running around with someone, you have to let them know you've got area control, otherwise they might be able to not run away. Trimming Expert is actually a really handy perk. What it does is it reduces your heal, and it reduces it reasonably significantly. In beautiful description, it's 3 degrees less heal, which means it's a perk heal degrees modifier of -4. So, you know, Russians, work that one out. Carronade Master, if you run a ship with loads of carronades on, so a lot of Connie captains like to do this, this significantly increases the accuracy of your carronades, and this can be very important because carronades do sort of loll about a bit, so given it's a cheap perk, it's a good perk. Rigging Specialist, which again, I personally would never say this, but other people might joke this is what you need when you're fighting against the Spanish. And what this does is it reduces the damage to your sails and also gives you an extra 10% sail repair. Now, a lot of folks like to eat your sails so that you're running around at like 40% sails and then they come and cap you. This means it takes them a lot longer to do that, and perhaps you can work on their hull while that's happening. And in turn, when you then repair your sails, you get an extra 10% repair, so that's rather lol. Pump Inventor is one that basically means you can get the water out of your ship quicker. It's nowhere near as good as the extra pump module you can get, and for 2 points I think this is a bit of a luxury. Storage Master. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, what a stupid perk. 7 points. If you take this, you can really only take 2 or 3 other perks tops. But what it does is it gives you 1 extra repair kit in battle, although it does damage your ship speed by 5%, only in battle, not on open world. But I fought against a guy who had this the other day, and it was kind of a one-on-one battle, and I was giving him a reasonable biffing, as he was to me, and I was chortling away because on my ship I run around when I'm in biffo mode with the carpenter teams, which gives me an extra 7.5% repair, and the steel toolbox, which gives me another 7.5% repair, so that's an extra 15%, and remember that's of your aggregate health pool, so you know that's thousands of extra health repair over what you would normally get. Now, Storage Master means that if you've got those 2 mods, you can do that twice. So it sort of adds an extra 30% health to your ship on top of what you get from a standard repair, and you can do the standard repair twice, and you can also do your watching this guy, you can also repair your sails twice as well. So I had this guy and he repaired, and I thought, doesn't matter, I've got my sexy time repairs. I did my sexy time repairs, I bluted him, and then he repaired again, and I had to run away. Emergency Master means the emergency repairs that you hit when, say, your rudder's goosed or your pump's goosed. Now, instead of being, I think it's a 7-minute cooldown, is now a 3.5-minute cooldown. That's quite nice. I'm not sure it's worth the 2% though. Expert Carpenter's rather troll as well. So Expert Carpenter means it's a bit like the Steel Toolbox and the Carpenter guys I've just shown you. It gives you another 7.5% repair for your hull, be it with a repair kit in battle or open world. So again, combine that with the toolbox and the carpenter teams. Now you're running an extra 23% repairs. That is crazy bonkers. Expert surgeon is a bit like thrifty in a way. What it does is it means you pay less for restocking crew. You'll get yourself an extra 10% crew. So a top meg kit will give you 150 crew. So the most this is ever going to do is give you an extra 15 crew. And, you know, I'm kind of underwhelmed, to be honest. The economy perks. So these are probably perks if you're a crafter trader type chap. Admiralty Connections is really crap, because it basically means that your crew hire is 20% cheaper, and I'm not really seeing the value of that. So crew cost you 500 a person. This turns it to 400 a person for 2 points. I really don't think it's worth it personally. That should be a lot higher to make it interesting. Fisher is an interesting one. This basically increases the chance of finding bottles by 25%, and that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We like that. And that's a good one to have if you do a lot of sailing, and a lot of traders and crafters do a lot of sailing. Foreman is, for me, probably the key craftery skill to get, because it increases your labour hours regeneration by 20%, so that's really good. These three are all the same, they're just for the different classes of ships as per the masters up here, and basically it reduces the amount of hours you spend building a ship by 25%. They're quite cheap, so perhaps if you specialised in building Victories or Santis or the Ossian when they come out, this might be worth getting, because 20% is a huge amount of hours saved. It's about 350 hours saved on a Victory. Overseer, for me, is pointless. This increases the amount of hours you can store. But if you're a crafter, you're always running on fumes when it comes to hours. So unless you're someone who just logs on every 3 days, I'm not seeing the value in that at all. This is a good one, Royal Shipbuilder. It gives you a 10% reduced crafting. So it's kind of a generic version of these, whereas these are 30% and 20%. 25%. This one here is just a blanket 10%. I assume they stack. I couldn't tell you. But that's worth getting. And Gifted. This is huge. So if you build a gold ship in order to try and get a blueprint, maybe I'm building a Belle Pool or whatever it is to try and get the renommee. If I build a gold one, I've got about a 25% chance of getting the drop. If I'm running around with Gifted, I get a 50% chance of getting the drop. So let's have a little look at some example builds. Now these aren't min-maxi builds, these are just sort of things I've played around with. So if we come up here, this is a Port Battler build. So I've gone with a double charge for the towers, and also for when I get nice and close to enemies, and also shooting people at oblique angles. I've got Determined Defender, so I can't get capped easily. I've got Press Gang, so that if I am modded out for capping myself, I'll recover crew. And I've got Prepared, so if I drop in, then I've got my guns loaded, which is really important if you drop into the middle of a port battle if you're defending. And then depending on what I played the most in, so for me it would probably be frigates, because I do a lot of deep water ships, I would run a Frigate Master. Now, some alternatives. As I said, you could have Coward if you run flags a lot, and Mortar Officer if you're a big mortar monkey, and maybe swap those two in for these things here. Or you could perhaps look at bringing Coward in, and maybe you're not too worried about Determined Defender, but you would have to drop one of the other single pointers. So that's Port Battler. But you can see how, you can configure yourself differently. So if that's Port Battler, down here, this is open world PvP. So for this, I've gone with double charge and double shot. So when I get nice and close, I can lay down the hurt. I've gone with Determined Defender again, so that I'm difficult to cap. And I've gone for Prepared, so if I get a close tag, I can start hitting sails or hulls straight away. Now again, you could perm one of these, depending on what you fight the most, or if you wanted to, you could bring in, say, area control, perhaps for Determined Defender if you're not so worried about being capped. Then you wouldn't be able to afford one of these, and maybe you could bring in Carronade Master if you like running around with Carronades, or even Trimming Expert so that your sales don't get knobbed up as much. So you can see there's quite a bit of variety you can play with. And then here we've got Crafty McTradeface. So I've got Foreman, Gifted, Royal Shipbuilder, so more hours, better chance of drops, cheaper building ships, find me some sexy time bottles. Depending on what I built the most, I might take one of these. Or if you didn't really want Fisher and you weren't interested in this, perhaps you could bring Coward in because you're doing a lot of trading and you want to be able to run away easily. Or if you're always getting tagged or you're worried about getting capped, you could perhaps swap out Fisher if that doesn't bother you, or swap out Gifted if you're not worried too much about the BPs, you're more of a trader, and bring in Determined Defender or Rigging Specialist. A bit of some fun builds. This is AI Cap Troll, so I don't have Determined Defender. I sail in with my Victory and park next to an enemy Santi, and hopefully the AI Santi tries to cap me. I've got prepared so I can shoot him as he comes next to me and get the kill points on him easy enough. I've got double charge, so that means the damage is enough to get the kill tag. I've got defensive drill, so when the Santi attacks me, I can go into defense for almost no points at all. And if you've got barricades and marines, you'll absolutely slaughter a Santi crew. You'll probably be able to 3-shot a Santi with this on. And then I've got press gang, so I can chain cap. And I've got expert surgeon, just so I get the extra crew back. It's a bit of a friggy one, that one. Now you could drop that out and pick up one of these for the extra speed and pew pew. So that's like a cap troll one. That's earning money build. And then lastly, for shits and giggles, this is HMS Hardass. So here I've got the Storage Master. This is the one that gives me the extra repair kit. I would run that with my steel toolbox and my carpenter teams, so that I'm getting an extra 15% repairs twice. I'd run Determined Defender and double charge with that, so that I can shoot people and do damage to them, tag them. And Determined Defender means I can, it's harder to cap me. Now you could swap that out and perhaps bring in Carronade Master and Thrifty because you're a tight ass. Or don't go the Storage Master build, instead just go the Mega Health Pool build. And in that case, instead of having Storage Master, you might come in with Expert Carpenter, which is the extra 7.5% hull repairs, Rigging Specialist, and say Trimming Expert, so that you don't heal as much, so you're not picking up leaks, and your sails are easy to repair. So there you go. That's just a bit of a discussion on the different perks that are in the game, which I think are all quite interesting and good fun. I'm looking forward to these developing. They're constantly tweaking them, so don't worry too much about the exact numbers right now. We're in test mode, guys, so have a bit of a play with different builds. Don't just rush straight to the optimal build. See if you like area control. Have a go with a troll build with Storage Master or Export Carpenter, etc. And if you're a tradie guy, Gifted is brilliant for the blueprints. You're probably going to swap that out once you've got the blueprints you want, and then you can maybe bring in one of the others, Coward or whatever. So there you go. There's officers and perks. I hope you enjoyed that. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I'll see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.